Hello and welcome to the BBB-Sitters Club Plants for the Merri video. My name is Don McKenzie and I'm on the Ecological Restoration team at Merri Creek Management Committee. This project is funded through the Moreland Council Thrive program in partnership with Friends of Merri Creek's Community Engagement Subcommittee with Chrissy Charles and Edie Bush and Rachel Solaro, who's from the Newlands and East Coburg Community Houses, or NECHI. We'd like to acknowledge that this project takes place on the lands of the Wurundjeri people who have been custodians of this land for thousands of years, and acknowledge and pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. Video is part one of two videos and a webinar which we're running on Wednesday 20th of October at 7 p.m. You're encouraged to join the webinar where we'll be interviewing some special guests on the Merri Creek and insect pollinators. And it's your chance to ask any questions about your plants, the creek, or the project in general. In this video, we'll go through a brief description of what Indigenous plants are, the tube stock plants that you'll be receiving, and how to plant and care for them. In the second video, we'll talk about pollination and some of the native pollinators that you might see. So many people are familiar with the idea of the gardening term native, which usually refers to plants that are from the Australian continent. However, planting of natives from Western Australia, for example, are not appropriate for local fauna and could potentially become weedy as they're outside their natural range. Indigenous plants are also native, but refer to plants from a local or specific area. Along the Merri Creek, large-scale reintroduction of these plants has taken place over several decades to recreate the bushland that was here before European colonisation. Much of the original landscape was cleared of vegetation for agriculture, and now we collect seeds and material from the remaining plant communities that have survived till now. Collection of seed is called provenancing and ensures that the genetics of the plants we are planting are local and adapted to the climate and geography of the Merri Creek. Many nurseries specialise in the collection and growing of Indigenous plants, such as the Victorian Indigenous Nurseries Co-op, or VINC, which have grown the plants for our project. With this reintroduction in mind, you can see in this photo here just south of the Blythe Street Bridge in Northcote of how the creek looked in 1987. It was severely degraded with almost no Indigenous plants present. On the right of the photo is the Brunswick Terminal Station, which is now the Merri Park wetland just behind Northcote High School. And this is the same place on the creek now. Since the huge restoration has taken place, we've seen many birds, insects, and even wallabies return to the area. So with provenancing in mind, the 4 plants we've chosen for you to grow are both uncommon or rare along the Merri Creek and can only usually be found growing in small patches of remnant grasslands. This means the seeds you can collect from the plants are perfect to give to friends or family, or grow yourself as they're totally suited for the area. There are many other Indigenous plants that are great habitat plants for animals, and I highly recommend looking at the book Flora of Melbourne or on the Darebin and Moreland Council websites for tips on gardening with natives. Of course, the best way is to head up the creek and visit the grasslands to see what's in flower. Okay, our first plant is the chocolate lily, or Arthropodium strictum. You might also see the other Latin name, which is a synonym, called Dicapogon strictum. It's a small perennial herb that's dormant in small tubers over summer before coming up in autumn and producing large flower spikes with chocolate-scented purple flowers. These plants were collected from the Marranbarba Parklands region, which runs alongside the creek in northern Melbourne. Chocolate lilies can be grown in full sun or part shade and are perfect for planting amongst other plants where the tubers won't be waterlogged or rot in the wetter months, and it has ample space once the leaves emerge in spring. When grown in pots with good quality free draining potting mix, the plants will become very large and produce bigger blooms. The tubers are also edible fresh or cooked and can be divided and planted before spring. Second plant is the Austral Storksbill, known by the Latin name Pelargonium australe, and it's a rosette-forming herbaceous plant with a large taproot. It has very large, slightly hairy green leaves that often go reddy brown or autumnal colours in winter. Groups of small pink-white flowers will appear from autumn and through summer, and it's part of the geranium family and produces really nice scent when it's crushed or brushed past. These plants in particular are collected from Yarra Bend Park in central Melbourne, from only a handful of plants left in the Merri catchment. Austral Storksbill is a very hardy plant and it's perfect for planting amongst rocks or pavements and looks fantastic when mass planted. It grows great in pots and can be pruned hard to the base before putting on spring growth. Grows best in a full sun position with well draining soil, and if receiving plenty of water will self-seed around the garden. Third plant is really special. It's the Dianella amoena or matted flax-lily, and it's a federally endangered plant that was once very common across the volcanic plains, but is now restricted to small, highly fragmented bushland reserves. These plants in particular are grown from material collected at Quarry Hills in Melbourne's northeast in the Plenty River catchment. The flowers are an important food plant for the blue-banded bee and other pollinators, and releases pollen through a process called buzz pollination, which we'll touch on in the second video. Matted flax-lily has a creeping habit with blue-green foliage giving way to large flower stalks. It features small purple-yellow pendulous flowers that turn into purple berries. It grows best in free-draining soil in a full sun position, but can be grown in pots and planter boxes. And our last plant is the Tufted Bluebell or Wahlenbergia capillaris. It's a small rhizomatous or slowly creeping indigenous wildflower featuring slender green growth and masses of purple-blue flowers that can appear majority of the year. The plant often dies back in summer, and the thick fleshy roots are edible and can be divided amongst the garden. Bluebells grow best in free-draining soils in a full sun position, but can tolerate low shade or being planted amongst other plants, and they look fantastic when planted with grasses. Like the matted flax-lily, they grow really well in pots and planter boxes. So for anyone who might not be familiar with planting tube stock from a native nursery, it's very easy and follows the same practice as normal pots you get from any other nursery or Bunnings, for example. When removing the plant from the tube, it might be a bit pot-bound and the roots will be a bit square. Try to gently massage it out to ensure any roots coming out of the bottom aren't torn or damaged. Some potting mix will fall from the plant and it might not be perfectly square, but this is fine and you'll just need to backfill a bit when planting to ensure the roots are covered. Plant to the height of the tube and cover with a bit of soil to make sure any surface roots nearby the stem aren't exposed. Lightly mulching will help keep the plant from drying out as it establishes, and some leaf litter from eucalypts or she oak is great, but any commercial mulch is okay too. And don't forget to water it in thoroughly. And that concludes things for the plant side of the project. And in the next video, we'll get into some of the pollinators you might see and how to make submissions for the citizen science database. If you feel there's anything we missed or would like more info about the plants, please get in touch. Be sure to check out the Friends of Merri Creek Facebook page and website for any coming events and to find out how you can get involved in more conservation volunteering, along with our Instagram page where you're encouraged to share photos of your garden and any pollinators you might see. Thanks for watching and have fun with your planting.